Hey Capricorn, happy spring, and here's your weekly horoscope for March 28th to April 3rd. Basically, the theme for you continues to be adjusting to new conditions, the new society, the new way things are. And, well, your sign doesn't always adjust too well. The truth of it is, you actually do adjust, but not without a lot of complaining and negativity and stress at times. You're ruled by the planet Saturn, and it's just your nature. But in time, you do adjust, and you do carry on, and in fact, you usually survive things quite well. You, better than anybody, know that you have very strong survivor capabilities. So keep that in mind as you push on this week. Basically, with the Sun in Aries, that's kind of in contrast to your natural energy because the Sun in Aries is bold and out there and energetic and motivated. And while you can be motivated, but bold and energetic and flying off in new directions is just not your natural energy. So when the Sun comes along every year in the sign of Aries, it challenges you to get moving. You know, some astrologers joke that if Capricorn sits still too long, they take root, and there's some truth to that. And that's why these kinds of changes and upheavals may come along for your sign, is it's to force you to uproot some of your habits and change. So the Sun in Aries will drive that message home a little harder this week for you. And as well, the Mars in Gemini, especially squaring Mercury last week, probably had a few Capricorns kind of grumpy. But this week, that aspect has moved on, and you might be more willing to work with the reality of things. Speaking of reality, your sign is one of the most realistic of them all. You're not really that prone to fantasy and dreams and things like that. You may be a person of great faith, or you have great faith in yourself or sometimes other people in your life, because you actually do really know right from wrong. But sometimes you just choose to do things your way, whether that's right or wrong or not. And that kind of an attitude may be challenged this week with both Sun and Venus in Aries. In fact, with the Sun and Venus conjunct all week in the sign of Aries, your closest relationships are the areas that are asking you to change. So, for example, in your relationships with spouse, children, grandchildren, grandparents perhaps, or older relatives, but in particular also perhaps your boss. So be careful because you're in a bit of a fighting mood perhaps still this week, and you don't want to get into Dutch with the wrong people. However, sometimes you do need to stand up for yourself. Everybody does. And sometimes you need to draw boundaries. Now, you're a person usually that can set good and strong boundaries. You don't like when people cross your boundaries for sure. You'll let them know when they do. But it could be that in your frustration and in your need to fight change, that sometimes you may rub other people the wrong way. So if that indeed happens, at least know that with the Sun, Venus in conjunction, that even though it may be in negative aspect to you, it does provide opportunity for you to discuss and negotiate boundaries within relationships, and perhaps also come to some resolutions. So that's the good news. With Saturn still in Aquarius, your ruling planet Saturn, in a square aspect to Uranus until next week, okay, that is an aspect I've said before if you looked at my other videos, where the universe is asking you to take a good look at your life and make some changes. Now, just because this aspect is ending next week doesn't mean you're out of the woods, because it comes back 2 more times this year. So if you did not choose to make some creative and positive changes for yourself in the first 4 months of this year, 3 months I should say, then okay, maybe you got away with it this time, but you're not going to the second or third time that this square comes up and kicks you in the backside. If you were one of the people that got kicked hard sometime in the last 3 months, that's a message from the universe to change, or to embrace change, or embrace anything that's good, new, and positive for you. You really hate throwing away the past. You really dislike change in some ways. But you do know that when you look back in your life and you've made certain changes, they usually have ended up pretty good for you. So keep that in mind as you look to the future this week. Continuing on, Pluto in the sign of Capricorn still, not making any aspects except to the moon. So for the last while, next little while, Pluto is in a position to kind of bring up a lot of people's psychology, because it's only aspecting the moon, which relates to your emotions and how you express them. So unfortunately on Monday, with Pluto squaring the moon in Libra, it could be that someone is coming to you and saying, hey, you're not being fair, or you may need to point out to someone you're not being fair, and be careful. Try not to get too judgy or critical, or Watch out for other people being judgy and critical of you, but make sure that you meet people 50-50. The moon in Libra can help you do that, and keep in mind, that is how life should be for everybody. It should be give and take and compromise, right? So try to be more compromising on Monday if you can. Later in the week, on Wednesday, when it sextiles the moon in Scorpio, you'll probably be feeling a lot more calm and a lot more like, okay, we got some rough spots out of the way. Now let's get on to some good stuff. And likely the rest of the week should end up being very good for you. The moon will end up in your sign of Capricorn by the end of the week. So very likely you're going to feel, well, a lot better by the end of this week. So good luck.